Hello and welcome to Valley Girls, the bi-weekly podcast exploring everything there is to see, do, try, eat, and experience in New York's Hudson Valley by talking to the makers, the doers, the growers, the creators, and all the unique voices of the Hudson Valley. I'm Jenny Leifer.
And I'm Jennifer Santiago, and together as the Valley Girls, we're telling the Hudson Valley story one episode at a time. We're so happy you're here.
If you've listened to any Valley Girls episodes before, you know we love books, we love local business, we love the Catskills, and we love Brett Barry, the host of Catscast, the Catskills podcast. And today we get to combine all of those loves. Hi, Brett. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jenny and Jennifer. Thank you.
Hi. But today is extra special because Brett brought us a new friend. We have Rebecca Rigo Barry with us here, too. Rebecca, your bio is so interesting. Brett sent me over a copy of your bio, and you have a master's degree in book history, which I never knew was a thing you could get a master's degree in, but now I want that. So you have a long career in publishing and book history and rare books, and you love old books. And so I feel like we're going to have a lot in common and a lot to chat about. And we're super excited to meet you here today. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Yeah, book history. I know. I always have to explain it to people, and I always just say it's like art history, but books instead of art. You know,
that's so great.
That's amazing. Yes,
I don't know if that's really a description, but
no, it is
total non sequitur. But have you ever worked with the books that are bound with skin?
I have never worked with them, but I have held one in my hands.
That's wild.
When I was a graduate student, we took a trip to. There's a collection in Philadelphia.
Yes, I read about that one. It's like it's some kind of medical museum, but they have.
Yeah, it might have been the Mutter Museum,
yes,
which is where they have a lot of medical oddities. There might be another one because I don't know if I was at that museum but anyway, we all got to. They handed around a book and they said, "Here, hold this book," and then they told us what it was, and we were all, "Oh God, what did we just handle?"
And do you remember the title? It was a famous book.
Was it How to Win Friends?
Yeah.
How to Win Friends and
people.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would be pretty influenced if you handed me a book and then after I leafed through it, you told me it was bound with skin.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a super weird question, and we might not even include that, but these are the kinds of things that I got excited about when I was like, she has a master's in book history. I bet she's handled so many cool, rare books.
When was that book put out? When was it published?
The Carnegie book is from the 1920s. I don't know when the binding was done.
The binding was done, yeah. Huh.
I didn't know that we did that as recently as that. I think the ones I was reading about were much earlier on. So that's somewhat troubling that still in the 1920s or later we were binding books.
Yeah.
I wonder what that the skin donor had to say about that. Were they in on this?
Usually they were not.
No.
And this is how our 20-minute conversations turn into hour-long episodes. I love this. It is so great to meet you, Rebecca, and have you both here to celebrate some really big news. You two, along with two other partners, have just become the new owners of Purple Mountain Press. Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Please tell us about Purple Mountain Press and its long history here in the Catskills.
Purple Mountain Press began in 1973 as a printing shop in Fleischmann's, New York, and by the 80s was much more involved in book publishing. So there are at least 100 titles on the backlist, probably more, but that's how many we've uncovered so far. And Rebecca does have a little story about the actual building in Fleischmann's when we started coming up to this area, so I'll let you tell that.
Yeah, when I met Brett in the mid-90s and started coming up to the Catskills, we drove through Fleischmann's one day and saw the big Purple Mountain Press sign. It was a pretty prominent sign on a building in town. And we were just leaving college. I was starting to work in book publishing at the time. And I kind of had this moment where I thought, wow, well, they have a book publisher here. If we ever moved here, I could work there, and so it's kind of a weird full circle moment of being involved with this press. I guess I was just always meant to be.
And that building was recently taken over by a bar restaurant that calls himself the Print Shop in homage to Purple Mountain Press, having been there for so many years.
That's so cool.
That is so cool.
The books, the backlist, it's not just the Catskills, it's Hudson Valley, it's Adirondacks, it's a little bit of Lake Champlain. So I think the original founder, he kind of started branching out little by little, Revolutionary War history, colonial history, some maritime history. So we're kind of in the process now of just trying to figure out what it is that we have and what needs to be done with it. Should we reprint it? Should we get a new introduction to it? That kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And we're kind of overwhelmed by it all.
I can imagine. So will it be all aspects? So you talked about the building in Fleischmann's, which is now a bar restaurant called the Print Shop. So what about the actual production? If you have a title and you say, okay, we're going to add a new intro, we're going to update some information, how are you actually producing your new volumes?
I think it's a rarity for a publisher to have their own press, unless it's a big place. I don't even know if the big ones do that. But anyway, we send them out. Well, we haven't sent anything out yet, but
You
we know the
will.
we know the places where we can send them out. But there are printing companies that do that physical work. So we would be responsible for acquiring the rights to the book, working with the author on the copy editing, the layout, the photos, the cover design, all that stuff. And then all those files get sent out for the actual production. They come back to us, and then we have a warehouse, apparently, in Newburgh.
I love that. As he looks at Rebecca, apparently.
Yeah. That's where many of the books are. The rest are in our pantry. And as we sort through. So once it comes back from the printing company, then it's ours to distribute to local bookshops, museums, historic societies, and the big places where other people like to get their books.
That's a lot. That's a lot of things to do. That's
Mhm.
like, aside from actually physically printing them, that's
Yeah.
every single aspect of the supply chain. So I
Oh,
can see
and
why
then
you're overwhelmed.
yeah, and then marketing them, and so people actually know that they exist. That's a big part of it.
Yep. But that's what
Incredible.
Rebecca's doing.
Yes.
Yeah, setting up some author events. And I mean, up until now, the publishing house had no social media, would post some blog posts here and there, but nothing on any kind of schedule. And those things are small, but they're important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes,
As you
absolutely.
both know.
Yeah.
Yes. I was going to say, I can speak to that for sure.
Yeah. So what's the origin of the name Purple Mountain Press, aside from the fact that purple is the best color?
Let's refer to the press release here, Jennifer, because there's a quote. So the man who started the press with his wife, his name is Ray, and the folklore states here, and I choose to believe it, that this was inspired by a dispute with his third grade teacher who criticized his drawing of purple mountains. She said, "Mountains aren't purple," and Ray disagreed. "Did we not sing of the purple mountains, Majesty?" And then 23 years later, driving or moving to the Catskills and driving through the mountains, he said to his wife, "By God, they really are purple." The Catskills do take on some interesting shades. So I guess he was right. And so the name stuck, and we have no intention of changing it at this point. It's
I
kind
really
of
love that.
a cool story.
That
It
is
is a
great
cool story. It's like a rebelling against the don't color outside the lines kind of ethos.
There was also Washington Irving made mention of this, and there's a quote here I guess I could read. It's in the public domain at this point. Washington Irving. "As we slowly floated along, I lay on the deck and watched them through a long summer's day." He's talking about the Catskills from a boat on the Hudson, "undergoing 1,000 mutations under the magical effects of atmosphere, sometimes seeming to approach, at other times to recede, now almost melting into hazy distance, now burnished by the setting sun, until in the evening they painted themselves against the glowing sky in the deep purple of an Italian landscape." So there we go.
Wow.
They really are purple
They really
if
are.
you catch them at the right time.
Absolutely.
Oh, so
That's fun.
incredible. So I see one of the books in your catalog is The Catskills from Wilderness to Woodstock by Alf Evers. Brett, in 2024, you won the Alf Evers Award at the Catskill Center Fall Benefit. Can you tell us who Alf Evers was and his legacy here in the region?
Yeah, Alf Evers is one of the, if not the most famous author about the Catskills post John Burroughs, I guess. And he wrote a really large volume called Catskills from Wilderness to Woodstock. and it was out of print for quite a while. It started out with a big publisher in the city, and then it went to Overlook Press, which is now gone, which existed in the Catskills. Then it went to Abrams, another big company in the city. And then very recently, our predecessors worked with them to get the rights back. And so now it's part of the Purple Mountain Press catalog, which is awesome because it's such a great book. And it was really hard to find a copy of it until recently. So, yeah, he was a famous historian and author who lived in the Woodstock area. Started his career writing children's books. He has about 50 children's books to his name that his actually his I think his wife wrote them and he illustrated them.
Hmm.
And then he got into the history of the area and wrote this huge book, which stands as one of the great books of the Catskills, going all the way from the Ice Age to Woodstock, basically.
And you read the whole thing, start to finish.
And I finally read the whole thing, start to finish, before we even know that we were interested in this press. I read it last year, and it was awesome.
You kind of had to after you were getting the Alf Evers Achievement Award, so it's the least you could do, Brett.
Yeah, that was quite an honor. I think mostly for my work with the podcast Cats Cast and chronicling some of that history. But yeah, I was really flattered by that and surprised, and it's proudly hanging on my wall now, the Alf Evers plaque.
That's so cool.
Kudos.
And we met Alf's son recently. He owns a bookshop in Saugerties.
Oh, how convenient.
Alf's son is, I think, 84 at this point.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
And he has a bookshop called Our Bookshop.
Because it stands for old, used, rare.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that one. It's almost
Yes.
across the street from the antique shop that we went to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a great little bookshop. He lives upstairs, so it's really pretty magical.
That's so cool.
Wow. I didn't realize that was his son.
That's awesome. All right. This question is for both of you. I would like both of your answers for sure. So I spent a bunch of time going through making my wish list of all the things I'm going to need from Purple Mountain Press to build out my library. I was very excited that you have Dutch Schultz and his lost Catskills treasure, because I'm semi-obsessed with the story of Dutch Schultz, who was a bootlegger and is said to have left behind a significant amount of treasure somewhere in the Catskills, in and around Phoenicia. There's a bunch of tunnels. Anyway, I watched a bunch of documentaries about this. I'm into it. So I was excited about that book. I also love some of the categories that you have. You have a category for folklore and a category for regional mysteries and fiction. So I'm not saying what's your favorite, but for both of you, what's in the catalog that you were really excited about as you were going through your backlist? What's the thing that you're like, oh man, if I could only like revive one or get attention to one of these? And you don't have to limit yourself to one, but I want to know what are the things that are making you really excited about this project?
There's a few books by a woman by the name of Shirley Dunn about Native American history in the Catskills, which I hear again and again, like these are legitimate. There's a lot of history about Native Americans, but what can we really lean into? And Shirley Dunn is one of those authors. So it's amazing that that's part of the catalog, and we want to maybe reprint or revise those with some new introductions and grow off of those with other authors. Rebecca?
I guess I would say, I'm more interested in the historical aspect. So there's a book that we came across last week. I think the title of it is Sybil Luddington. Is that the name of it? And it's a young adult book, and it's about a woman who lived during the Revolutionary War, and I think she was a teenager when the British invaded her little town, and she had to she apparently got on a horse and rode off to where her father was to alert them to this raid that was going to happen. And then there's another book about a woman named Jane Colden, who's apparently one of the first female botanists in the United States. So I'm just really interested in women's history. So to know that those books exist, I feel like they need some attention as well.
Okay, 2 follow-up thoughts on that. First of all, when you guys get up and running, you can hire me, and I will take over the part of the catalog that does all of the oddities and folklore and haunted history. I am your girl for that. But also, Rebecca, yes, I do know about your interest in women's history and uncovering women's stories that may otherwise have not been told. So will you tell us a little bit about your most recent book that you came out with, which is called The Vanishing of Carolyn Wells, Investigations into a Forgotten Mystery Author. I had never heard of Carolyn Wells until I saw that title.
Yeah, no one's heard of her. So I'm not surprised. That's actually what drew me to the project in the first place.
So how did you discover her?
Well, so For a long time, I was a journalist covering the rare book world and auctions and literary history. So I always drag Brett to this big rare book fair in New York City every year at the New York Antiquarian Book
I'll
Fair.
go with you. I do not have to be dragged.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was willingly dragged.
It's every April. We always go. And in 2011, he came with me. And while I was like off chatting with friends, he went and bought me an old edition of Henry David Thoreau's Walden, which is a book I've always loved. And, it was a birthday, going to be a surprise birthday gift for me. And when I opened it on my birthday, it had this book plate, a really interesting, like Renaissance-looking woman book plate, and the name on it was Carolyn Wells. It was owned by this woman named Carolyn Wells, and I didn't think too much about it at the time. But then I started seeing her name kind of pop up here and there, mostly related to mystery novels, vintage, 1920s, 1930s mystery novels. And it kind of took me years to really put it all together to find out, oh, this woman who was this big time book collector was also a pretty famous mystery author in her day. And then I found out that she wrote young adult novels and she wrote poems and poetry, and she was published in literally every magazine that was in the United States between 1890s and 1930s. Her name was everywhere and super well known. And then she just absolutely fell off the map. She just, her name just vanished from literary history. So I just kind of went into that project thinking, like, how does somebody who reads every day of their life, who is an English major, who's a bibliophile, who writes about books all day, this is my business, my hobby, everything, not know about a woman who published 180 books in her life?
Wow.
How does that happen? That whole idea of literary fame. How could you go from being super famous one day to being absolutely unknown just a few decades later?
Right. That's like losing Agatha Christie, right?
Right. And, as I always like to point out, she was doing exactly what Agatha Christie was doing it, but she was doing it a decade earlier than Agatha Christie.
Wow.
And there are scholars who believe that Agatha Christie was influenced by Carolyn Wells. So there's that.
That's super cool. That's so serendipitous.
Fascinating
And
history.
by the way, nice job picking out that gift, Brett.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about Agatha Christie in this house, based on our Carolyn Wells research.
Well,
No.
it's no one's fault. Some people get remembered and some people don't. Some people have great estates, literary estates, who make sure that they get remembered, and some people don't.
Interesting.
Yeah, since that original book that I gifted to Rebecca with that book plate, we've discovered quite a few more, and that's been really fun. And she was a big book collector as well, Carolyn Wells, and had a world famous collection of
Walt Whitman. Yeah.
Wow.
That is so cool. That feels like a whole subgenre of book collecting that I never even thought about. It's not necessarily even just the book that you're after, but then the inscription or the book plate in
Book
it.
plate.
So how many Carolyn Wells book plate books have you managed to find so far?
Maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Plus I bought a couple of her letters that, pop up on like eBay or through booksellers. A couple of photos of her. I know, it's like I went into the project saying, you are not a collector. This is not a collecting project. This is a biography you're writing. But like I just got carried away. Things would pop up on eBay or through a bookseller, and it would be $20, $50, and I would say, well, no, I should own that. I'm the one researching her life. I should own that. So, yeah.
Wow. I just finished this book called The Lost Bookshop. Have you read that?
Yes.
So
And I just ordered it thanks to your recommendation.
Because what you're talking about makes me think of that, where they were trying to find the old Bronte letters and possible apocryphal second manuscript. So yeah, that's fun.
I love those kinds of, they call them bibliofiction or biblionovels. I love it.
That was great.
Oh boy, you are speaking Jen's language, that's for sure. Feeling inspired to add some local history to your home library? Take advantage of 25% off your order from Purple Mountain Press through March 31st when you use promo code ValleyGirls, all one word, all caps, at nysbooks.com. Shop by region, including the Hudson Valley, the Catskills, the Adirondacks, the Champaign Valley, Lake George, and the Mohawk Valley. Or by subject, including art and architecture, Native American and ethnic groups, outdoor recreation, and even young readers. Titles include In the Catskills by John Burroughs. Murder in the Catskills by Norman J. Van Valkenburg. Jane Colden, America's First Woman Botanist by Paula Ivaska Robbins. To explore the full catalog at Purple Mountain Press, visit nysbooks.com and use the promo code ValleyGirls at checkout. Happy reading! You recently put out a press release, as you alluded to before, about the acquisition of Purple Mountain Press, which we will definitely link to on the episode page on the website, valleygirlspodcast.com. It is a really nice summary. It includes bios for all four of you. The subheading on the press release is "Four partners look to revive the iconic independent publisher based in the Catskills." So I guess my question is, what's your vision of reviving the press? What's next, and in what ways are you hoping to grow?
I think there's some really important titles that have just been ignored in a way for a lot of time that I think we just need to make people aware that they still exist and are out there. We also just want to kind of reinvigorate the press with new works which are focused in this region and in history. And I don't know, Rebecca, what do you think?
I guess I'd also say like John Burroughs, for example, like he's probably our most well-known Catskills author. And it would be great to just revive his books a bit. I mean, some of the bigger publishers in the world have editions of John Burroughs, but we should too. And we should have some kind of local inflection on them. Maybe, you know, some kind of local nature writer who can speak to why it's so important to this region specifically. Or so that maybe even have some synergy with some of his two houses in the area. I just think there's a lot that can be done to bring in the voices around here, the talent around here, the museums around here, the historical societies. There's just a lot that we can be bringing all those elements together, you know, and putting them all into a book that we can all share in.
I think one of the other things we're hoping to do is to revive the aesthetics of the books. Not to speak badly of the press that we now own, but they say don't judge a book by its cover, but some of them are hard to get away from. There are some pretty horrific covers in the collections, and formats have been kind of weird. There's some really large format books that don't necessarily need to be, and the covers are just a little wonky. So we're really interested in upping the quality of the production. Really nice covers, nice paper stock, a little bit more reasonable pricing. So these are all things we're looking at as we look to reprint and print new books so that they're physically appealing.
Yeah, I did notice that on the covers when I was looking through the website, they all look very academic. It looks like a book that you were assigned to read in school,
Right.
which I would read anyway because I'm a nerd. But yeah, I could definitely see just like the visual appeal could use kind of an update. So
Yeah.
do you have, I'm not volunteering myself because I can't even draw stick figures. Do you have artists that you're working with or designers who are kind of specialized in that?
We've been in touch with a couple of book designers right here in the Catskills and just kind of waiting for the first new book to then present it to them and see what they come up with. So that's exciting. Yeah, there's some really talented people that obviously many talented people who live in this area that we are going to certainly lean on for some of these areas that we obviously can't. I mean, yeah, stick figures are my specialty.
Yeah.
None of us are graphic designers,
No.
unfortunately.
I mean, we definitely have an embarrassment of riches of creative people and artistic people in the region. So how important is it going to be for you to try to source all the talent locally for any design work and, you know, production, all of that? Are you trying to keep it really Catskill centric or at least regional?
Yeah, I think that's really important.
Yeah.
We have a new logo that was designed by a regional graphic artist. We have book cover designers in mind. Obviously, most of the authors will be regional. And even the production of the books is going to happen within 90 or 100 miles of the Catskills, I would say.
Man.
Yeah.
Great.
That's awesome.
And the warehouse.
And the warehouse is in Newburgh.
Apparently, from what we've heard. So what about the price points on these? When you were talking about the Alf Evers book, it sounds like a beast. Is this something that I would, okay, not me, but a normal person? Is it something that a regular person would buy and own as part of their home library? Or are we talking about like this is like an encyclopedia that you're going to go to the actual library to find it?
We've been getting orders for it in the month or so that we've owned the company. So
Nice.
people are, if they're interested, they're going to buy it. But I still think we can get the prices down on some of these. This one's particularly expensive because it's a hardcover, it's giant,
Mm.
and our predecessors were pricing things, and I don't totally disagree, with places like Amazon in mind, because if you
Yeah.
list something on Amazon, they take such a huge percentage. You have to make sure that you walk away not in debt. So but I still think, and our production manager Carolyn is working on ways to balance that more reasonably, so that we have a really nice quality product with a price tag that most people can afford, which at the moment I don't think we're there.
Yeah.
And I think with the Evers, actually, I was talking to a man yesterday about the Alf Evers book, and he was saying what he really likes about it is that you can just dip into it and read a little chunk of a chapter. You don't have to read it start to finish like you did. You know, that he's like, I couldn't possibly read. It's like 600 pages, right?
Mhm.
It's like, I couldn't possibly read that all start to finish, but you can just dip into it here and there, or pick out your own region, or pick out a certain time period that you're interested in.
Which actually makes me think that you could perhaps do it in chunks and have a number of volumes and split it up. And so I haven't seen the book, but if there's whatever a section about lakes, you could have just a volume of excerpts from the Alf Evers masterwork of smaller ones. There you
Yeah, I
go.
think
That's a free idea for you.
Nice.
I appreciate that. I think there's some books we can group together, little package deals. There's a whole series of mysteries: Mayhem in the Catskills, Mischief in the Catskills, Murder in the Catskills. Why not
Yeah.
offer them as a set? And yeah, pulling pieces of books for smaller works, or even like audiobook work, or other ways to get bits and pieces out there that aren't necessarily the original volume.
If only we knew anybody who was awesome at recording audiobooks.
I don't know. You guys have nice mics.
Not as nice as your mic.
So how does this actually, now I was being silly, but how does Purple Mountain Press, how do you have plans to kind of dovetail that with Silver Hollow Audio?
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
one of our
actually, tell us what Silver Hollow Audio is for people who don't know already.
Yeah, so Silver Hollow Audio is a production studio in the Catskills that we started in 2004 when we moved up here full time. And we specialize in spoken word media. So a lot of audiobook work, public radio pieces, podcasting. And so yeah, we're well set up for any type of narration, which includes audiobooks. And now, of course, we have a whole bunch of material that we might want to dip into and create audio versions of either sections or full books. Especially as we bring new books into the fold, it would make a lot of sense to fold an audiobook into that at the same time. Audiobooks are expensive. I mean, not to buy, but to produce.
Oh,
We'll produce it, and we won't use AI.
We won't even, well, no, we're not going to use AI, but
Which is what some other publishers are doing.
yeah.
Yeah.
so narrators are expensive, and we have to work that into whether that's feasible. But I'm a narrator, but I can't narrate all of them. So
I was just going to say, we'd be happy to listen to your voice reading a book. You're good at that.
You actually produced an audiobook from our friend Jana Brooke Wallach. We love her
Yes.
book, Naked Girl. You guys did that one together, right?
what a great book. We had so much fun
So
doing
good.
that.
And that's Jana's voice. Jana did it because wasn't that she had somebody else, but it just wasn't what she was looking for, and so she ended up just recording it herself with you.
Yeah.
And she was a machine. She would come here and record like 6 hours straight. I didn't know how she did it. As someone who doesn't narrate all the time, it's really hard. It's a marathon. And man, it was so much fun to listen to on this side of the glass, and to be able to hear it in the author's voice was really fun. What a great book.
I love that book.
Such a good book. It's so fun
great.
listening to her do Nana. We had her on our Literary Hudson Valley show, and I was like, you got to give me some Nana.
Yeah, it sounded a lot like my Nana.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of ours. Oh, this was so great. Anything else that we didn't cover that you would like to share?
I don't know. I mean, we're just, as I said, we're about 6 weeks in, so we're still just trying to wrap our hands about everything that we need to get done. And we've got a lot of spreadsheets. We've got stacks of books everywhere. And, you know, we all have roles, but there's only four of us. So those roles are numerous. I mean, I'm in charge of packing and shipping and fulfillment and the web, and I'm the treasurer apparently. So,
I love all these apparentlys as he looks at Rebecca.
Were you there when you did this acquisition?
Some things were assigned to me that I was like, no one else wanted to do them, but it's been, but it's enjoyable. Like, it's taking a lot of our time, but so far it's been a lot of fun, and just imagining what the possibilities are is a lot of fun. So we're really excited to see what happens and where we can bring the press for this next chapter as the third group of people who have owned it in its long history.
Well, we are very excited for you and cannot wait to see what more you do with it. So we just really appreciate you taking the time and coming to talk to us today about it. We're really excited
thank
for
you
you guys.
both.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you both for being here. And we will make sure to get all of the links, the press release, all of that connected in our show notes and on our episode page on the website. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone for listening. Please like and subscribe, rate and review, because as we know, it all helps tremendously. Do you love the Valley Girls? Tell a friend. Have ideas for the podcast? Tell us. The easiest way to chat with us is our Facebook group, Valley Girls Podcast Pod Squad, or you can contact us through our website, valleygirlspodcast.com, where you can also sign up for our newsletter so you never miss a thing. And of course, we're on Instagram at valleygirlspodny. We can't wait to hear from you. Oh, and do you love our theme music as much as we do? The music for this episode is by Robert Burke Warren, entitled Painting a Vast Blue Sky, and can be found on his album Red-Headed Friend, available on iTunes and Spotify, and at the link in the show notes. Bye for now.